Hey, how you doing? In this episode, we have on Will. Will was a guest that we had on. He's ex-military. He has a heck of a story. The things that he's been through in his life, it's kind of hard to believe. In this episode, he shares a lot about his story, the things that he went through in the military, what it was like before he was in the military, growing up as a child, where his addiction set in, where his addiction took him, the things that he did, and ultimately where he is today through his recovery process. And I will tell you, it's a pretty remarkable transformation that we have seen in somebody, and he's 5 years sober now, and he has his relationships back, he has a career now, he has all these things that he never thought that he would be able to attain because of his addiction. And he's here today to share with you everything that he has accomplished for himself, and hopefully you can accomplish for yourself as well. So if you have any questions or comments and you want to reach out to us, you could always reach us info@realrecoverytalk.com, and either myself or Ben will get back to you. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
What's happening? Ben, that's...
No, that wasn't good?
No, that was fine.
All right.
And we also have a guy by the name of Will. Do you go by Will?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Will. Hey.
All right. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us at info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, it's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And Ben and I, because I know Ben has checked, you probably have that email on your computer now, right? And you're actively checking it?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
I gave a little wink as I said that.
Yeah, we are, or at least myself, I'm actively checking that email.
I really struggle with change, Tom.
Yeah, I know.
Tom, he doesn't ask. He just changes something and expects me to adjust.
But it's always for the better.
It takes me a few days.
Yeah. So you can email us info@realrecoverytalk.com, and we'll get back to you. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
That is correct.
All right. Hey, Will. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. I'm alive.
Yeah?
That's woke up this morning. It's half the battle, I think.
So for the listeners, Will was referred to us by Eric, who was on the podcast a couple. How many times has Eric been on? Once or twice?
Twice, I believe.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what episode numbers. Eric, it's the guy with the big long goatee.
The mohawk.
And a mohawk, yeah. He looks like Iceman or Ice
Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you can go back and find that episode. I don't know how, but his name's Eric. Anyways, he came to us and said, "Hey, I got this guy Will, and I really think he would be good to have on the podcast." And from my perspective, anybody like Ben says, "Hey, this person would be good." Eric says, "Hey, this person would be good." That's all I need to hear. And so here we are. Hadn't met Will 20 minutes ago. And, yeah.
Well, it's definitely an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for having me.
So we got to chat a little bit before we started recording, as I always like to do. So there's at least some sort of sense of direction. And, I feel like it's going to be a good episode. I already have a couple of things that I know I want to discuss, and we can either hop right into it. Ben, if you have anything that you would like to share.
I'll just say, right off the bat, I think I'm gonna be learning a lot. I talking to Will while you were out getting ready, powdering yourself. I was kind of like, hey, I'm gonna learn a lot on this episode, and what we were talking about was Will appears from the outside like he's a dude that got sober. He's involved in a program. I've met him in the rooms, whatnot. But beyond that, it's like he didn't get sober to be lame, so to speak. He looks like a dude that has really partaken in life. And just to touch on some things, military background, which we'll get into, also the doing MMA and jiu-jitsu, part of a motorcycle association. I remember I spoke at a meeting once, and it's like him and all his guys from the motorcycle association. I'm like, dude, I hope I don't screw this up. These guys look scary, right? But the cool thing about it is the same thing. Like I say with Eric, like, you know, you meet these guys that, you know, on the outside they appear hard, but then when you talk to them, they're the most kind, loving human beings on the face of the planet, and I personally contribute that to the program, you know, and getting sober. And dude, you can still be like a man's man, so to speak, but still be somebody that people can lean on. And dude, you're the kind of guy I could just tell right now, like if somebody needed something, you'd be there for them right off the rip. I don't even have to know you that long or that well to be able to tell that.
Yeah. Well, even Nicole said, because Nicole was in here when Will walked in, and we were just chatting, and even Nicole said, you know, because here's the thing, like on a surface level, you know, you got the face tattoo, the neck tattoos, you know, the motorcycle vest and everything, like you know, you walk out, it's intimidating.
30-inch arms.
Yeah, like, and, you know, for somebody like Nicole, one of the first things she even said after a 5-minute conversation, she was like, you have good energy. And it's like, do you expect that for, you know what I mean? Like from guy covered in tattoos in a motorcycle association, MMA fighter, like, you know, ex-military. That is a testament of what sobriety does to people. Mm-hmm. So
100%.
I don't know if that was a good introduction. Seemed like it was.
That was really good.
I like sharing my perception when I first see people, because I'll call it what it is. Like I walk into a room of recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous. We have new clients coming in. I'm going to call it what it is. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't have my perception of what somebody is or who they are.
Yeah.
And then I get to know them and I'm like, whoa, man.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you're listening on the podcast app, you know, at least give yourself the opportunity to go onto YouTube and watch at least some of it on YouTube so you can at least see what we're talking about. All right, let's get into it. Will.
Yes, sir.
Share a little bit about yourself. I mean, this isn't like a typical AA meeting. I think we know that. But share a little bit about your history, you know, where you grew up, you know, when, you know, your addiction really kind of started, stuff like that. And obviously it's organic, so we're going to kind of branch off into other areas. I might cut you off and ask a question here or there, you know, but yeah, we'll just go from there.
No worries, man. Let's get into it. So I'm from the great former prison state of Georgia.
Why do you say that, prison state? Is that
because it was originally a prison colony?
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, there. Point number one.
I already learned something.
So there you go, right? So set up for success. No, but I spent a little bit of time in Georgia. I don't remember much of it because I was a kid. Moved around a lot. I'm in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, California, Florida. Bounced around a lot as a kid. Mm-hmm. So there was always that weird relocation. So like at the beginning of this, you said like you struggle with change, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're young and change is happening, it just, you get used to it. So, you know, instead of really kind of figuring out who I was as a kid, I figured out who I needed to be around who I was with, you know? So kind of like that chameleon deal. And my father, my biological father, he's a heroin addict and an alcoholic and abusive. So there was always that. Mom bailed on him when we were living in Clearwater, and that's kind of where I started to lose a lot of faith in people. You know, it kind of became, at a very early age, I was like the man of the house. So it got to that point where, you know, I had to take my needs and wants aside for whatever mom and sister needed. You know, and I was too young to really understand any of that, but it's what I was tasked to do. So I settled in good old Coal Springs, a couple minutes south of here, and I pretty much grew up there for the most part. So that's kind of like the hometown. When I was there, got into school, did all that kind of stuff, had friends, always hung out with older kids because they did crazy wild shit, and I liked that. And again, you know, I got a stepdad. My mom was married like 6 different times, bless her heart. And then she had to put up with me as a kid. So if you can imagine, that was it was quite a handful. My sister was like the golden child, and I was like the black sheep, both literally and figuratively. See, my mom's white, my sister's white, and my dad was black. So moving around a lot, explaining that me and my sister had 2 different dads and all this other shit became like just a lot. So it became way easier just to tell people I was adopted. So I went with that for a long time. So that was kind of weird. So like I was like, it was okay because I understood it, and like obviously my close friends understood it, but like everybody else, when I hung out with like my sister and my mom, it was just weird. I always kind of felt like the outsider, you know? So there was that. I started drinking pretty early. I had watched Little Nicky, and the brother was drinking the peppermint schnapps, you know? And I was always attracted to like cool evil shit, you know? So like the devil son is drinking peppermint schnapps, and my stepdad at the time had a bottle of peppermint schnapps at his bar. And I was like, I'm gonna be like that dude. So I tried it. And this is where it all started. So I tried it, and even at a young age, I knew, hey, I'm just fill it up with water. They'll never know.
Oh, yeah, the old water trick.
Does everybody know what Little Nicky is with Adam Sandler?
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a great biography.
Biography, huh?
Yeah.
Of your life?
Of my life, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. It's like, what do they call that? The prologue? Not prologue. What am I going for?
It's like the story after the story.
The antithesis.
Gotcha.
I think. It's
I don't
probably
know.
the wrong
Buckets
word.
would know. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not a scholar. But anyway, so started drinking, doing all that kind of fun stuff as a kid early on. And then, like I said, I hung out with older kids, man. So, like, you know, everything was a little bit ahead of its time. You know, I got into skateboarding, did all that. I used to go to this place called Piss, which was Pompano Indoor Skate Park, which they'd have, like, you know, punk rock nights. So you take the bus down there, and then, you know, all the older kids had weed. So I started smoking weed and drinking and skating and listening to punk rock and fighting and doing all that shit. And I found my tribe, you know, that island of misfit toys is what, you know, like I refer to a lot of things as. You know, I didn't fit in with regular folks. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. The booze and the drugs helped me do all that, right? Kind of set all that aside and just kind of live in that moment. And off rip, it was like, I knew that the way I drank and the way I did everything else was different from my friends. You know, I could see it, you know, I was pretty perceptive of that. I remember, one of the first like good rips I had, you know, I had these 2 buddies. I had Big Nick and Little Nick, and we were like really into Dazed and Confused and like 90s grunge and a lot of weed, and we had a band. And my buddy, Big Nick, had a Volkswagen bus that he was trying to restore. So we hopped in his garage. We stole booze from his parents that were having a party that night, and we got shit faced in there and pretended like it was like that scene from that '70s show where they're all sitting in the basement and the cameras going around and talking, you know. And we snuck out, went to, you know, just raging down the street, bottle of booze and just having a good time. And they're passed out, and I'm just watching them sleep and pounding away still, you know, by myself. So there was always something that was just a little different. And, you know, hindsight's 20/20. So, like, looking back on everything that I did, I can see how the disease was starting to take hold and progress, you know. Everything I did was to, like, some extent, cater to my addiction. So I started playing rugby. I dated this beautiful South African girl who's a monster of a father, used to play rugby for the South African national team. And he said, if you're going to date my daughter, you're going to play rugby. And I said, okay.
Wow.
So I fell in love with that. It's an amazing sport. You know, it's got all the violence and carnage of football, but the consistency of soccer. But the one thing that goes hand in hand with rugby is drinking. You know, it's a drinking man's game, you know. And so I did that all through high school, and I did a bunch of other shit in high school. And then I joined the Marines coming out of high school. You know, I'll never forget. I was pretty lost in the sauce, you know, in high school. I just kind of, again, like I fit in with everybody. I had no fucking clue who I was. I knew that I would outdrink anybody and do all the wild, crazy shit that no one would do. And I like getting in trouble, you know. That's how I got attention, you know, and that's how I gained acceptance from other people. They'd be like, oh, yeah, fucking Will do it. He's a crazy bastard. And so I remember, like, when I decided, because I was, like, looking at either going to Full Sail or I was going to join the Marines, right? Or I was going to try to go overseas and play rugby.
Full Sail is what is it? School, university?
Yeah, it's
music.
Production? Well, music and production, stuff like that. Because I did a lot of like live theater work as like a stage hand, so I did like set designs, light design, sound design, stage management.
Okay.
But yeah, so I ended up deciding to join the Marine Corps. You know, my grandfather was a Marine, Korea. My father, not my biological father, but my stepdad, was a Marine in Vietnam era. And my brother was a Marine. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Just keep it in the family. You know, the Marine recruiter did a solid job, dude. He took one look at me, took me out to go get a $5 footlong, and it changed my life, right? He goes, hey, man. He's like, you know, you can spend the next 4 years writing papers and reading books about shit you don't care about, or you can learn to shoot things and blow shit up. And I was like, dude, you had me at hello. You know?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, dude, sign me up. And when I told my mom, it was funny. I took her out to our favorite little sushi spot. And I said, Mom, I was like, I got good news and bad news, you know? And she goes, okay, so which one you want first? She goes, bad news. I said, well, I'm going to have to go away for a little bit. And she goes, well, what's the good news? I said, I figured out how I'm going to pay for college, you know? And she goes, you're not joining the Army. I said, you're right. I'm joining the Marine Corps. And she looks at me and she's like, you're going to get shot in the fucking head and die. And she left me at the restaurant, bro. And like, I get it, because that's got to be the most terrifying fucking news you could ever get from like your child, dude. Especially because at the time we were currently in 2 wars.
Right.
You know? So
this
like,
goes back to what year was that?
This was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and, you know, at first I was like, well, what the fuck, dude? You know, like, just be proud of me, you know? Like, this is like, I'm doing something good. You know, I've been a fuck up the whole time. Like, this is something honorable that I'm doing. You know, but, you know, I just lost my grandmother. So my mother lost her mother, you know? So then there's that. And then now there's this. So it's like, you know, she was just kind of getting hit. You know, like I said, hindsight's 2020. So we didn't talk. Right, for the entire time I was going through boot camp, none of that shit, you know, she was like really upset. And, you know, by the time I graduated, she showed up to my graduation with my dad. And we kind of repaired things a little bit. And it was just like it was a really like weird, turbulent time. I was trying to find my way and find my groove in the Marines, you know, because up until this point I'd been a anti-establishment,
right,
you know, kind of troubled adolescent, right? And here I am trying to do something, but I figured out that I was really good at being a fucking Marine. I was really good at it, and I dug it. So I would get put in like leadership positions, like squad leader and doing all this, and I really liked to be that extra push that the guys needed. You know what I mean? I loved it. That camaraderie that I had was something that was just like unparalleled that I had ever like experienced before in my life. You know, so now here I am, I'm 18 years old, no booze, no drugs, right? But I'm thriving in this environment of chaos, right? And like, you know, looking back on it, I'm like, well, why was I so content then? And we kind of got into this a little bit beforehand. It's because I didn't have to think. I didn't have to think. I was forced into an environment where everything that I did, up until the fucking steps I took when we were walking down the road, left, right, was fucking told to me, right? Be up at this time, make this happen, do this. Take these 5 guys, go get that, come back here, make this happen. So I was perfectly content because I did not have to think. There was no time to be alone in my thoughts, right? Because that's where, for me, for this alcoholic and drug addict, that's where things start getting fucky, right? If I get time to sit alone in my head, right, and I got that thing that between my ears that's a little broken, it's a problem. Used to be a problem. So did all that, got out, and life started kind of getting better. The funny thing about being 18 years old and being a United States Marine is you can find booze anywhere, and people are happy to give it to you. So drinking picked back up.
You said you did 6 years in the Marines?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got out at 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think. I don't math. I'm a Marine.
Marines don't math.
And
We don't math.
For the listeners, you told us before, but you went over to Afghanistan.
Yeah. So I deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. And even before then, right? So this is like an important part, man, for anybody out there that's listening to this. It's like the alcoholism and the drug addiction was there already. I'd already kind of built that. I was building upon that foundation the entire time that I was doing this. Not necessarily the drugs. I was pretty clean cut throughout my entire Marine Corps career, but certainly the drinking. And it always started out as fun. Every fucking story that's out there, it starts out as a good time and all shit, and then it develops into the problem. And, again, right? So I thrive in this environment, but, once you get that little bit of liberty and you can start doing stuff, man, the booze become a big part of it. We're going out, we're drinking in bars. I was stationed in 29 Palms, California, going through field radio operators course, doing all that kind of fun stuff. And, we're out there at La Palms too, just some fucking shithole desert bar. So now I can get tattoos. I can go to the massage parlors.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's that. And then I can, I can go drinking, without any kind of repercussions. So we're out there, we're drinking, we're picking fights with Army dudes and Navy guys that pass through town and each other when nobody's there because we're bored.
This is while you're still enlisted or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is in California.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good old California. And all these things started happening, right? So I'm out there, and I married my high school sweetheart.
Was this the rugby girl?
No.
Okay.
So I married my high school sweetheart. We knew each other through stage work, and we had our first daughter. My first daughter, my oldest, Tallulah. And, I'm out doing my thing and she's at home doing all that kind of fun stuff, being supportive while I'm out just doing crazy shit and kind of losing my way in life, I'm a young man. I got money in my pocket. I got no kid to deal with, no wife to deal with because they're at home doing their thing while I'm out here doing this and I'm just running amok, man. Because at this point, I had no moral code, no morality, no spiritual guidelines to follow. I was just selfish and self-centered like the books talk about. Mm-hmm. And I was only consumed with what I wanted, how I wanted it, and what I wanted to do with it. And if you had something I wanted, I was going to get it one way or another. And, that mentality kind of worked. And I was really able to kind of separate that from the job. So in 2012, when I got deployed to Afghanistan, it was like, it's go time. This is what everybody who does that job is dreaming of, right? Going to the big show. And, while I was there, experienced some things, did some things. And none of it was really what I expected, saw some crazy shit, yeah, man. So, that was what it was, and then I came home. And coming home was the hard part. Because there was a lot of things that I felt like I didn't do right, or I didn't have the opportunity to do some of the things that I wanted to do, or I did some things I didn't want to do, but it was the job, And there was a lot of emotions, man, that I was just like could not fucking deal with, man. And like, I ended up getting a job, part-time job at a bar. I'm there, I'm doing the thing, and I'm just drinking and drinking and drinking. And this time, I buy a motorcycle, right? Because drinking and motorcycles go hand in hand.
Oh, boy.
Right? So needless to say, Veterans Day, about the year after I get back from Afghanistan, I get in my first motorcycle accident, you know, because I did what every good alcoholic veteran is going to do. I'm going to go to every restaurant that gives me a free meal and get free beer and a free meal, not eat the meal, just drink the beer, and then I'm going to bounce around and just get free booze all day on my motorcycle, right? So I do that, get into an accident. Not a crazy accident, right? I'm obviously still here, and I got all my limbs and not too much road rash. But my handlebars are bent, my key snapped off in the ignition, my like little clutch lever's gone. So the fire department shows up, I am hammered. Cops show up, I am hammered, and I know this is not a good situation, right? So I'm trying to get out of there as fast as I can, right? And I'm like, hey, man, you know, I'm just going home. Blase, blase, blah. You know, it's Veterans Day, just coming from Applebee's. You know, it's got my free rack of ribs. You know, thanks for your service, by the way, sir. And I'm like, I'm just going to go home. They're like, can you ride your motorcycle? And I was like, yep. So I take my knife out, boom, I pop it in the ignition, and I twist it, and the bike fires right up. So now I'm limping my way, right? Because the handlebars are now like this, you know, from the bike dropping. I got turn signals that aren't there. I'm shifting with my hand, you know, reaching down and shifting with my hand. And where do you guys think I went?
The bar.
The bar that I work at. And the first thing I do is I just got into my first motorcycle accident. And you know what the solution to that was? They bring me a tray of shots. Happy fucking Veterans Day, right? So, you know, and everything just progressed, right? So it was like PTSD bullshit tied with like my drinking and drugging. Because at this point, drugs had re-entered the scene, right? So, you know, I'm not really doing anything hard yet. I'm just really smoking weed and drinking a lot. And, you know, it got to the point, man, where like I really felt like I had nowhere to turn, no one to talk to. You know, my family didn't get it. You know, I was closed off from the guys that I worked with. At this point, I'd started getting in trouble in my military career because of my drinking. You know, UA, drunk on duty, all this bullshit, picking fights with the wrong people. And, you know, I just felt alienated, dude. I felt like all fucking alone, man, to the point where I'm sitting in the bar, right, that I work at, and I'm just crying. I'm crying at the bar, you know, not for anything else except for the fact that I just feel absolutely disgusted with myself because I'm out there chasing chicks, drinking booze, ignoring my wife, ignoring my child. And, you know, they spent the last couple months figuring out how to live life without me. So they got their shit down packed. And I come home expecting just to go right back to where I was, and it just wasn't the case, dude. So I felt like there was no fucking place in this earth for me. So I was going to drown myself in my sorrows at the bar, and if anybody had a fucking problem with it, I'd smash their fucking teeth in. You know? And that was my mentality, right? So it was this big old poor me fest, right? And so this continues for a couple years. And, you know, whatever it was, man, I drank myself to blackout every night for 3 years because it's just easier. And it gets to the point where, you know, a bunch of crazy shit's happening. I'm fucking pissing the bed. I'm throwing up on the motorcycle while I'm riding it. You know what I mean? I'm waking up weird places, getting chased by the cops. You know, I'm doing just reckless shit, man. I asked a cop one time, you know, I said, hey, can you get an open container on a motorcycle? He goes, well, there's no cab, so I don't know. So I rode from the bar to my house, which is like 10 miles, with an open beer bottle in my hand just to see if I could do it while I'm drinking it.
It's insanity.
That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And so I do what most alcoholics do, right? Get the bright idea of a geographical relocation. So I uproot my wife from her job, my kid from her school, and we move up to good old Daytona. Because at this point, I started getting involved in motorcycle clubs, right? Because I can sense that my time in the Marines is getting ready to end, right? Like I know the contract's coming up. and I'm starting to make preparations for what I want to do. Now, I love motorcycles, I love drinking, I love fighting, and I love like women. So, motorcycle club, you know? And we won't get into which motorcycle clubs those were. But if you know anything about it, then you probably know the geographical location. You can figure it out. So I get involved with the motorcycle club, and I moved to Daytona, and I'm planning on starting a chapter up there. So I get up that way, start going to school. So I took my VA stuff and went to school, Wyotech, for motorcycle mechanics. And I did that for for about a year. Got a bunch of dudes, started doing the whole building up of a chapter thing. Entire time, right? We're going out, we're drugging. At this point, cocaine had entered the scene. So I'm doing cocaine, I'm drinking a lot, smoking weed, still chasing women, ignoring all of my responsibilities. You know, I'm getting more involved with the clubs. I start getting fucking arrested, you know, here and there for, you know, silly, dumb shit, fighting and all that kind of fun stuff. It got so bad to the point where my water was shut off in my apartment, right? So now I have my daughter, who's like 3, you know, I have my wife who's about 6 months pregnant, and me at this 1-bedroom apartment up in Daytona. Water's completely shut off. I have no way of making money. All of my money is going that I'm getting for school, that stipend and shit that they give you. It's all going to drugs. It's all going to booze. And we got like some sort of fucking EBT. So that's how I'm getting food for the family. And the water's shut off. I'm using fucking gallon jugs to flush the toilet. I'm sending my wife to the gym, right? Because I got a $10 Planet Fitness membership, right? She's on. So we don't have to fucking worry about it. I'm not paying that fucking water bill. Just go take a shower at the gym. Bring the kid with you, you know? Mind you, again, she's 6 months pregnant, you know? So, man, I sound like a fucking gym, dude. Looking back at this, it's crazy shit. Yeah, so that goes on for a little bit, and then I leave the club that I was in, and I go to a different club because, you know, I wanted something else, man. You know, I wanted to be Billy Badass, man. You know, and I did that for a little bit, and you know, all the crazy shit happens. You know, I'm getting shot at. I'm doing some very sketchy shit. I'm spending more time at the clubhouse than I am at home, to the point where my wife just, you know, I don't show up for a couple of days, and she's just checks the jail and checks the hospital. And if I'm not there, she figures I'm out running around the club, you know? And then my second daughter was born. And, you know, I'd like to say that, like, you know, kids and shit make things change, but they don't. You know, now meth has entered the program. So got meth, coke, booze, weed, and everything else I can get my hands on, man.
And how old and what year was this?
This was, it would have been, because at this point I had gotten out of the Marine Corps, so it would have been about 24, 25. So I just gotten out. So now I'm like full throttle into this crazy fucking lifestyle, man, that I've set myself up on, right? Because, you know, chasing an image, I'm chasing acceptance, you know what I mean? I'm chasing camaraderie, you know? And again, this aligned with everything that I wanted to do. So I started going to jail, right? Go to jail a couple times, get picked up on weapons charges, all kinds of fun stuff. I started getting all kinds of trouble. So, like any good alcoholic and drug addict, once the cops start knowing your name, it's time to leave town, you know? So at this point, I had met the stripper who was the love of my life, right? Granted. So I convinced my wife that we needed to move back down south where her family is and my family is so that we could have more support for the kid, you know? So again, she uproots her life, take both my daughters down. We go move back into the place that we were at the time. And I just go, you know what? This isn't working out, you know? And I thought of it like this. I thought of the time that I borrowed the car, the family car, to bring a buddy of mine somewhere, and he left his fucking gun on the floorboard in the back of the seat. And I found it when I was putting my daughter into their car seats. And I go, I'm no fucking good, dude. You know, 'cause at this point, everything's starting to weigh on me. The time behind bars, the drug use, constant court dates, not being there, shit getting dangerous. And I think to myself, I'm not fucking doing these kids or this chick any good, man. I haven't been fucking faithful to this woman since year 2. You know what I mean? I'm a fucking shit father. I might as well just get the fuck out of the picture, man, before these guys get hurt on my account, you know? So that's how I justify it, right? But I'm still not going to change anything about what I'm doing. I'm just going to fucking drop them off and say, good luck. I'm going to go do me. So that's what I do. I do that. Drop them off there. I fucking move to St. Pete, me and the stripper, get a 1-bedroom apartment. I start working construction. And it's good money. It's hard work. Things are going kind of okay with me and the stripper, but I'm not having a good time, right? She's bitching about my drug use. And, you know, hey, dude, you got to go. So we're fighting. We're doing all this. I go and get a job as a bouncer in titty bars, right, in Tampa. A lot of options. So I do that. And then, you know, everything continues. She leaves one day, just bails, right? I came home to an empty fucking apartment, right? My clothes are in a pile on the floor. I'm on probation, right? And she even took the fucking ice trays, right? That's a sick human being, right? Take the ice trays out of the freezer, dude. It's fucked up. But anyway, so again, I just continue to drown my sorrows and doing all this shit and all that shit. And I'll kind of breeze through the whole St. Pete thing because it's just rinse, wash, repeat. You know, same old song and dance. You know, but I will say this. By the end of my stay in St. Pete, I was living in a tent in the woods behind the restaurant that I worked at. And I thought I had the fucking dream. I thought I had the life, right? Because I had my job. I had the gas station that had $2 Rolling Rocks. I had the place that could cash my check. And I had Walmart. So
what more could you ask for?
Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. So I'm getting shit-faced in the woods, right? This is how bad it got. I really was so delusioned by my drug use and drinking that I took, you remember that show, MTV Cribs?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. So I Facebook Lived my tent get up, right? Like it was an episode of MTV Cribs, right? Really, really thinking, bro, that like I had it figured out because all you other dumb sons of bitches are out there paying rent, paying for your electricity, paying for water.
Yeah.
And, you know, fuck it, dude. I was a Marine for like 6 years, bro. I'm like a professional homeless person.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm getting all these messages from some of my guys from the Marines like, bro, if you can just fucking make it to Vero, I have a room for you. What the fuck are you doing? You know, like. And so I cashed my last check from there. I put my trash bag of stuff in a 24-foot U-Haul because it was cheaper to rent the bigger one than the smaller one. And I call my mom. I say, I'm coming home because I'm ready to get right now. Come home. I don't really remember much of the drive. I remember waking up that next day, getting out of the U-Haul and all the Budweiser cans falling out. So I moved into my parents' place. You know, I think I'm 26, 27 at this point. And I moved back in with old mom and pop. And I'm doing all that. I don't really have a relationship with my kids so much, you know, besides the phone calls and seeing them every once in a blue moon. You know, I remember getting asked to not show up to a birthday party, you know, and that was like, all right. And then, yeah, so I went around, I hid my drinking, but I thought I was doing all right because I was getting jobs again. I got a car again. I was doing all this, and I'm still on probation. So I pick up a DUI charge a couple months into it, and I go right back to jail. So I end up spending about a year and some change. And, you know, I get out, right? And I found Jailhouse Jesus. I found AA in jail. The guy's bringing the message in. And I got out. My sister came and picked me up. And she dropped me off at my parents' place. And I took the $13 that I got arrested with that was in my pocket, and I went straight to the bar.
Man. I mean, it's a typical story, you know. It's not surprising at all.
Yeah.
And you were at 28 then?
Yeah, because I got sober at 28.
So get to the like the last 2 weeks before you got sober.
Right. So
unless there's like, because I want to leave time too to talk about the solution, because you got a strong message there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we'll get to that because that's the important part, right? Like, you can hear war stories all day, but the actual message is in the hope that we have.
Well, no, but you've done a very good job, and I don't want to cut you off. You've done a great job of, I mean, the one thing that I take from all this up to this point in your story is, again, and we talked about this in a little bit before even recording, was the military aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I do want to spend, after you wrap up, I want to spend a little bit of time on the military aspect, because I think, you know, from at least my perspective, not serving in the military, but at this point, and Ben and I can attest to this, we've treated a lot of military people. You're not really set up for success on the exit, you know, when you come out of the military. And I think your story is a good representation of that, you know, with everything I'm sure that you've gone through, as most Marines do, I imagine, in terms of combat and stuff like that. And just, you know, Will, thank you for your service. We'll see you later. You know, here's your GI Bill. You know, if you want to go to school or whatever the case is, go ahead. We'll pay for that. They'll send us the bills. We'll pay for it. But everything else, you're left to your own devices. And I think that's what really makes people turn to drugs and alcohol. It doesn't make you. It doesn't hold a gun to your head and says you're going to utilize drugs and alcohol to deal with your shit.
Right.
But what else is there to turn to? You know. So, anyways, go ahead and keep going.
All right, yeah. So, anyway, you know, about this time, man, you know, things are pretty bad. And we'll get to my sobriety date, October 8th. October 8th, right? Just another day, man. I get off work. I go out with a bunch of people that I work with, man, and we're out tearing the bar up. We end up going to. So I had this dude, right? I had my guy at the gas station, right? Because in Coral Springs, they stopped serving booze after 12 at any kind of gas station. But I had a dude who I tipped real well. I'm not going to say his name just in case he's still an employee. But I would tip him, and he would go back there and grab me whatever booze I wanted, right? And then just be on my way, right? So do that. I'm with this chick, and we're driving around and all this other kind of shit and having a good time, singing songs and just having fun, man. And I don't remember much after that, but apparently, right, because this is the recounted story that was explained to me the following day, I apparently passed out in the front lawn of my parents' house, right? So my mom came out there, and she kind of kicked me, you know, like, hey, dude, get up. And I woke up. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea what was going on. I was just totally confused. So I did what I always do, and I resorted to violence and anger out of fear, right? Because fight or flight, my base is to fight. So I start yelling at my mom, right? Complete full flight from reality, right? Doing all kinds of crazy shit. I punched a mirror off of her Mercedes. She's scared to death. My dad comes out, and he's trying to calm me down, get a hold of shit, and what do? I tear him apart for, calling him like a fucking fake Marine and all kinds of bullshit, and telling him he's fucking not a real man and all kinds of dumb shit, man. And again, I don't remember much of this. I remember them being terrified for their lives, and they run into the house, and I rip the fucking door handle off of the front door, and I'm just losing my mind, man. And my mom's threatening, she's like, "I'm gonna call the police, and you're gonna go back to jail," because I'm still out. I'm out on bond at this point for the DUI charge. And so I run. I ran, and I spent the night at the gas station attendant's house. I got picked up by my boss the next day. And, the kicker is that October 8th is not only my sobriety day, but it's also my dad's birthday. So you want to talk about a swift kick to the nuts. There it is. But anyway, so I get picked up, and the next day, the one person that hadn't given up on me at this point was my sister. You know, we kind of had like an estranged, distant relationship, but she always kind of had that faith that I was going to be able to pull out of this. She calls me and she says, "Hey, what are you going to do now that you're homeless?" And my mentality is, I've been homeless before. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. She goes, "You need fucking help, dude." She's like, "I'm picking you up and we're going to the VA now." And in my brain, I go, what is Miller's Ale House going to do without their saute cook? I'm working a double. I can't leave the team. I can't leave the team. And my sister goes, "You're going to be fucking fine without you," right? So I go to the VA. They put me in some fucking stupid gown. And, you know, they ship me off to this treatment facility. So it's kind of weird, right? So I get to the VA. I spend like 2 or 3 days there just kind of detoxing. And they say, "Hey, we're going to send you to this dual diagnosis place," right? And they're going to be able to give you the help you need, right? So they gave me a flyer, like a brochure of all the places that they send veterans. The place that they sent me to, which I'm not going to name because I don't know how all that works, but it wasn't on the brochure. So I go, "Is this where you send your problem children to just fucking, you know, get rid of them?" You know, because it was sketchy, right? So I get there, and a lot of things like that they had told me was going to happen didn't actually happen, right? So they like, "Don't worry about it. They're going to have clothes for you and all this shit there. You're going to be taken care of." I get there, there's no clothes. I got money, but they took it. And I'm like, there's a Walmart across the street. I can fucking see it. I'm like, dude, just take the money and go get me fucking underwear and socks, bro. So they didn't. And I ended up wearing the same shit for about 3 weeks until my sister mailed me stuff. So, you know, this being a dual diagnosis place, it was interesting because it was like, you know, it wasn't just drugs and booze. You know, obviously that was there, but it was a lot of other things. And this facility was completely negligent, you know. It really was. These guys, it was a bad rap. I think they had a new contract with the VA, so they were kind of testing them out. But needless to say, man, you know, I got out of there, and then when I got out of there, I actually went right down the way here and got involved in like a 2-year program. But I remember raising hell at the VA and being like, dude, you guys got to stop sending people there. You know, I wrote some letters. I talked to some people in power, and that's what ended up happening because they weren't doing any kind of actual service. This wasn't like me being a fucking prima donna and going, "Oh, my bed's not comfortable enough," or "The fucking chicken sucks here, dude." You know, like this was just like doctors slamming doors in people's faces and just like all kinds of bullshit, right? You know? And so I get over here, right? And I'm in a 2-year program, so I do IOP and PHP at the VA. You know, they take us to these meetings, the local meeting houses and stuff like that on what I call the BCB, the birth control bus, right? Because, you know, every dude who's like newly sober, right? You get to like these big newcomer meetings, and there's all these like what you think is like hot chicks, but really they're just sick chicks, you know, that like, you know, whatever, dude. It's like being in the joint for a while. Everything starts to look good, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, you can spit the best game in your life, dude, but as soon as you get on that fucking Salvation Army bus, brother, it's over. And so it was actually like a blessing in disguise, man. And, you know, I started to have like this issue with coming to newcomer meetings because, again, right, like kind of what we were talking about, what I'm getting at is it was all just war stories. It was all war stories, or some bullshit about, "Oh, I'm upset because this fucking dude ate my peanut butter," or, you know, some chick fucking talking about her sick cat for 30 fucking minutes. And I'm like, I'm not having any fucking fun, and I'm not receiving the message that I'm looking for, right? So, you know, they ask, "Hey, dude, does anybody need a sponsor?" I raise my hand, some guy comes over. And I tell him this, right? And he goes, "That's cool. We don't ever have to come to one of these fucking meetings again. Check this out. We're going to start going to men's meetings." So he starts picking me up, taking me all these different kind of meetings, and I start to realize that, like, sobriety, especially in a fucking place like this, dude, there's tons of flavors, man. You just got to find the one you like, right? Because at first my mentality was, man, these meetings suck, dude. I'm going to have to do this shit for the rest of my life, right? That was my mentality. I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life, right? But then I started going to different meetings. I started hanging around dudes that had time, and these guys that had lived this fucking program and lived this life and had solutions for the things that I was going through. So now I got a sponsor. I'm going to the meetings that I enjoy, that I pay attention to. I'm not finding myself distracted by fucking women or other bullshit. And I start to gain a little steam, right? So everything starts to get a little bit more enjoyable, and everything I start to learn, right? So, you know, we'll fast forward a little bit, right? because this is what it's all about, right? I started to understand that what I needed when I first came in here was fucking hope, because I didn't have any. I needed a message of hope. I needed to experience what love and tolerance was, right? What this program teaches us. And I had to learn how to be a man, you know, because at this point, like, I thought I knew what it meant to be a man, right? Fighting, boozing, women. None of that shit was what actually made you a man, dude. Like, I had to learn how to be a righteous man in recovery, right? What it meant to actually do good shit, right? So now I've gone through the steps. I had a sponsor. I got a new sponsor now. I got sponsees. I'm doing the thing, right? I'm starting to be of service, right? Because what I was taught is that the actual purpose of this program is to outfit myself to be of maximal service to my fellow human beings, regardless of whether they're inside the rooms or outside the rooms. And the way I do that is by developing a spiritual connection with a power that's greater than myself, nurture that, build upon that, and have a new fucking director of life, right? So, like, a lot of people get trapped with the whole God thing. Well, my mentality was this. Well, I don't really give a shit what color shoes God wears on Tuesday, right? It's not about defining what it looks like. It's not really about any of that. I don't need to know. I just need to know that there's something bigger than me that's got a plan. Obviously, it's got a plan. I should be in prison for the rest of my life or dead, and I'm not. So there's a purpose for that. What's that purpose? To outfit myself to be of maximal service to my fellow human beings, right? So, you know, I didn't get sober to be miserable. I didn't. So I hung around guys that did shit that I like to do. And I got involved in this motorcycle association. You know, I started doing all these things, right? So it's like, I live my life today exactly how I want to live my life, man. I do martial arts. I teach martial arts. You know, I have a wonderful relationship with my children and my ex-wife, you know what I mean? And my family, dude. So, like, all these things started to come back together, but it was really only a result of working this program, you know, and getting those results. And I came to understand that the whole, like, higher power thing, like, how I attribute to that is and how I, like, work with that is, I just call him boss. I've had bosses before, right? Like, when I was in the military, dudes were my boss. I didn't have to understand the plan. You just told me, hey, bro, here's what we got going on. I need you to go do this. If you go do that, we can make this work. Okay, boss, I'm on it. So now when I talk to my higher power, it's like talking to the boss. Hey, boss, what's going on? You know, help me figure out what you need me to do here.
That's an interesting take on that.
Well, it's kind of like, you know,
I get it. Makes sense.
I tell all my sponsees, bros, don't worry about. Don't think of God as like a thing. Think of God as like a job title.
We have a new employer.
Right there.
Well, dude, so I've talked about this before. I know Ben and I didn't really say much, but for good reason. That's one of those times, you know, when somebody starts sharing, you know, and they kind of suck you in. Mm-hmm. Normally when we're interviewing people, I'm like, as they're talking, I'm like half listening and also half like thinking on questions to ask and stuff. And every now and again, I get into this position to where I don't think of questions to ask because I'm just listening.
Just listen, yeah.
And that was the situation. So what I am going to say is we're going to break this up into 2 episodes. We're going to still record. We're not going to record another episode, but part 2 of this, I'm going to break this up into 2.
Cool, man.
2 episodes. So I have a few questions, Ben. I'm sure you do too. Why don't you start?
I wanted to go, and you started to bring it up earlier. I would like to hear a little bit more on your take. You said some things about, I refer to it as reintegrating into civilian life after the military. You said something that jumped out to me about being a professional at homelessness, and like a light bulb went off, and that makes sense. Because like Tom said, we do treat a lot of veterans here. We, just to throw it out there so people understand the background, you know, we ended up getting a contract with TRICARE, which is a veterans insurance, and we ended up getting a bunch of veterans, and therefore, like, over the past few years, have gotten to know a lot of their stories and trying to treat them And exactly what you're saying, when they're being told where to go, what to do 24 hours a day, they do great. That's why they do so well in treatment too. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they leave, they're unable to fend for themselves, so to speak. So I'm curious from your perspective, what has helped you as a veteran to be a civilian again? But is there anything in particular that you found really helpful? Is there? I'll let you explain.
So, like, big part of the military is camaraderie. A big part of it is having a purpose, right? Like, being a Marine was my identity for most of my young adulthood, and when I got out, I lost that, right? So I tell everybody this, man, like, most men that I found that I've worked with, the reason why their alcoholism and drug use gets so much worse is because at some point in time, they have lost their purpose in life. As it's been explained to me, being a man in recovery, being a man in general, right? You need a purpose, right? That's why going to work, providing for a family, or, presiding over your job as a leader in your job, that's so important because now you have a purpose, you have a task, you have something that you're constantly working on. You're improving yourself so you can improve the situation of whatever you have going on. Right? So if I don't have that, if I have no purpose, I'm wandering around, I'm wandering the world lost, aimless, right? And that's where that like irritable, discontented, and restlessness for me comes from, because I don't have something to do, right? And so for me, when I got out of the military, I went to motorcycle clubs for a long time because that's where I found that. But the problem was I found that, and the direction that they were going was not congruent to having spiritual principles or any kind of accountability, right? Real accountability. And so for me, right, like I did good my first year, and then my first year in recovery, I found ARM, which is the Association of Recovering Motorcyclists. And, it introduced me to a lot of people that had quality fucking time, right? There was a structure. There was accountability. There was honesty. There was that brotherhood that I was fucking looking for this whole time. So I kind of had to find for me what worked. And the funny part about that is, man, is that, this recovery thing's been going on for quite a bit. So it doesn't matter what you do, man. I know sober gyms. I know sober surfers. I know people who are sober that skydive. I know people that are sober that go camping. You can do all that shit, and you can find all that shit. You just have to figure out what you like to do and find a sober group of people to do that with, right? And for me, it was motorcycles.
So I'm trying to ask questions honestly, and because we at Rock work with so many veterans, like I'm trying to kind of help myself. I love talking to guys like you that have recovered. One thing that I've noticed, and I'm wondering if you have a take on this, is like, you mentioned being a chameleon in the very beginning. You were a chameleon in high school, and you kind of could adapt to different groups. In a way, my perception is guys that are in the military maybe lose that, because just as an example, and Tom, you can chime in here, like we'll get veterans here that they've been out of the military for 10, 20 years. And you introduce yourself to them, and the first thing that they tell you is, well, I'm a Marine.
Yeah.
Or, or whatever the case is. I feel like that is their entire identity, and they've carried it with them for a decade, if not more. And not that, I've never been in the military, so I don't want to like misspeak, but it's almost as if it's like being a retired NFL player.
Yeah.
And being stuck, like the guys that go on to live good lives but can't become commentators, stuff like that,
Right.
I feel like from your story, you have found a new identity, so to speak. It's still part of your identity,
right,
and part of your truth and your story, which holds a lot of value, but it's not, you're not stuck in it, I guess, is my perception.
Right. So, I mean, again, right? So like early adulthood, being a Marine was who I am and was what I was, And really, it was just like, I didn't know who I was, right? So I had no idea about myself. You know, I've been drowning everything in booze and drugs and women for a long time. So in this program, right, and like doing the steps, taking a good hard look at myself and starting to figure this out and living a sober life, right? I'm trying different things, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm discovering who I am. I now have a purpose, right? To like be a part of something, carry a message, you know what I mean? Be of maximal service to my fellow man. I'm building this relationship with my higher power that's ever changing, right? And it's growing. And so doing all this stuff, I start to discover who I am, what I actually like to do, what my real values are. You know, I have a code now that I live by that like I'm going to choose that if you're going to be in my life, you're going to like be a part of that. But if you're not, then that's cool. You don't have to be. So I discover who I am, right? As this is a self journey of like self-exploration and deep dive into myself. And so, you know, I came to realize, right, that at some point you got to put the torch down. You know, being a Marine was an amazing part of my life. And it's something that I'm very proud of that I did. And, you know, there's always going to be that chapter in my life. But just like there's chapters in the fucking big book, there's chapters in your life. You know what I mean? And at some point, the chapter comes to an end and a new chapter begins. You know? So, you know, a lot of times, and I can see how it happens, man, you know, like, because for me at the time, being a fucking Marine was the greatest thing I ever did. You know what I mean? That was the greatest thing that I had ever accomplished. So being so proud of that and that being such a big part of my identity, I couldn't just go, okay, it's over now. You know, I always joke all the time. There's two people you're never going to guess who or what they are, right? Marines and vegans. It's like they're holding their breath when you start talking to them before they tell you, you know, I'm a vegan or I'm a Marine. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and I try not to do that, but it comes out every once in a while. But yeah, man, so it's really just a self-exploration journey, man. You know, I found out who I am now, right? And I'm sure that'll change in a couple of years, staying sober and doing all this stuff, man. Everything always changes.
You said something earlier, too, that Eric often says as well, finding your tribe. I like that you touched on brotherhood, because I have said this to some of our veterans. I'm like, I have a brotherhood. Now, it sounds to me like you've experienced a brotherhood in the military. Would you consider the brotherhood that you found now to be equivalent or at least close to in a way? Like, I know they're probably not ever going to be the same thing, but where you feel fulfilled?
Yeah, it's definitely different, you know, obviously, but, you know, what I have found in ARM, by far, goes beyond anything I've ever experienced, because it's something that is founded on spiritual principles that's rooted in something greater, you know? So it's like, I know that no matter what happens, whatever I'm going through, I can pick up the phone. I can go anywhere in this country. There's a brother there, you know, that's going to bring me to a meeting. It's going to feed me, you know what I mean? Put me up for the night. And same thing, vice versa. So like, you know, you kind of talked about it where it's like, you know, I don't care. If you need something, man, and I can do it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I have that tenfold, bro. Since
you brought it up, I like that you went this direction and you found like the brotherhood in ARM. Like, what? I'm not familiar whatsoever with motorcycle associations. What is a day in the life, or like what do y'all do, or like, because I've seen is like a bunch of you guys roll
You're
up
like
into
thinking
meetings
of like
together.
Hell's Angels or something.
But no, well, I watch them go to meetings together, and like in my head, I'm trying to imagine what you guys do. Like maybe you jump on your bikes and ride a 2-hour ride to hit some random meeting or something. I don't know. What kind of stuff, what does it entail?
So, you know, it's exactly what you think it is, right? We ride motorcycles, we stay sober, and we help out new guys. We help out anybody we can, right? So we're all about giving back to the recovery community, whether it's throwing events at recovery houses, splitting proceeds or whatever. It's about taking that guy who's kind of lost and doesn't really fit in with the normal group of AA. You know, I mean, yeah, sure, we're all bonded by the same thing, right? But you don't necessarily fit in everywhere, right? Like, I'll be honest, man, I go to a meeting up in some places up north here, and I fucking stick out like a sore thumb. You know what I mean? There's dudes up there talking about, man, I had to sell my yacht, and that ain't me, partner. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, we are the island of misfit toys, truly, right? So it's kind of like, you know, you don't fit in with normal society, you don't fit in with the normal biker crowd, and you certainly don't fit in with some of these fucking AA guys. You come fucking hang with us, and we'll show you a life you never thought was possible.
I like that. When I get a motorcycle again, I'm going to join.
Man,
I had a motorcycle. The joke is, it's not really a joke. I got married.
Yeah, that happens. That's the biker me.
But you know what? And I had a Super Glide.
Oh, nice.
Super nice bike. But dude, when I had kids, it was like, so I got married, and then 5 months after I got married, we were pregnant with my first kid. And as much as I love bikes, and I will own one again, and I told my wife this, as soon as all the kids are out of the house or they're 18 and they're not dependent on me, I'm buying a bike.
There you go.
I don't care what you say. Like, it doesn't matter. But looking back on it, I think, you know, for me, it's the best thing. Just because I want to be able to, my kids depend on me, you know? My wife, she's a stay-at-home wife, and well, not stay-at-home wife, kind of halfway, sort of. Like, she works a couple days a week, but primarily, you know, they're dependent on me. So, but I love that. I think that, you know, a lot of times people associate, you know, biker gangs. You know, they see a documentary on, you know, TV, and they're thinking of the Outlaws and, you know, Hell's Angels and stuff like that. And fun fact, I grew up in Western backwoods Pennsylvania. A lot of outlaws were there, and we actually hung out at the bar that I drank at all the time. No, not one, but like a group of them would come in, and got along great with them. I never was a part of any of it, but even them, though, they were super nice guys. Now, I never asked, don't tell type stuff, you know, but, you know, to hang out with them. Now, we were all drunk all the time too, but still, like, the bond was there. And I say this a lot, even with drugs and alcohol. Alcohol and drugs create bonds between people. Yeah. It draws people closer, you know, and it's generally speaking on a personal level that needs to happen to us in order for us to finally make a change. You know, we don't get sober because our drunk friends leave us. Yeah. We just go find new friends, new druggy, you know, partners and stuff like that. So
it does bring people together big time. Like, I remember, like, I had my people, you know, my drug of choice was heroin. Like, you get with your couple of guys and all jump in a vehicle together. Who's paying for gas? Who's got the dope money? You know, coming together with your resources, and you're like on a mission to get downtown, and then you know, it takes up so much of your day. Mm-hmm. It's a routine, like the same thing every day. You know, you wake up starting to feel sick in the morning. You're like, all right, how do we get this done? Let me hit up Justin. All right, Justin, what are we doing? How do we make this happen? What you got going on? You know, and what resources can we put together and make this happen? Like, it takes up, again, so much of your day and time. And then we get sober and they're like, oh, what do I do? And by the way, we have nothing in common other than heroin, dude. I don't even like you now that I'm sober.
Right.
You know, like,
it's a well greased up shit show machine. Yeah. That's what that is.
Let me ask you something. Your ex-wife and your two daughters, you said that, and I was trying, as you were talking, to kind of figure out in my mind how old they were now. How old are your daughters?
12 and 8.
And you said your relationship with them is great now. Do you care to elaborate on that a little bit? Like, you know, the dynamics of it now that you're sober and obviously super put together, I guess is the best way to put it.
So, you know, obviously when I was out drinking and doing all that kind of stuff, I was very absentee, you know. Aside from sending whatever kind of loose change money I had that wasn't going to something else, you know, I was pretty much out of the picture. When I got sober, you know, I started opening the lines of communication again, you know, calling on a regular basis. And, you know, I started to come visit, you know, and then things would happen like birthdays. And I started showing up, planning, you know, paying for things. And the one thing that the true blessing of being in recovery is this. I got to be a big fucking kid with my kids. We go to the water park. All the adults are doing cool adult shit, talking, smoking, and drinking on the side. I'm in the fucking water playing with the kids.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Right? So I'm getting to spend quality time that I fucking remember, and I'm like able to actually pay attention and have these learning moments with my daughters, right? So like, you know, if I was fortunate enough where they were pretty young when I was doing all this other shit. So like, you know, now they're getting older and they're pretty cognitive, like they're remembering me pretty much from this point on. So all that crazy shit, like kicking holes through doors and passing out in the fucking living room, they don't really remember too much of that, you know, maybe a little bit. But now when they're going through shit, dad shows up, right? You know, both of my daughters, they have special needs slightly, right? So my youngest daughter, you know, she's slightly on the spectrum, right? So she has a little bit of autism going on, so she requires special things, you know. But when that started going off, I was able to show up to the school board, you know, with my wife, my ex-wife, show up and handle all that and get everything squared away so that now she has the education program, the assistance that she needs to get what she needs, right? My oldest daughter, she like just recently developed some Tourette's-like syndromes, right? Symptoms. So, you know, I was able to go down there, talk to her, explain to her a little bit about what's going on, and just be blunt with her, you know, be honest with her, because, you know, she's a tiny human being.
Yeah.
She has no idea what's going on. So I explain and say, hey, man, this is what you kind of got going on, okay? We don't know if it's going to be permanent or if it's not going to be permanent. But while you got it, you have to understand, life continues to move. So you have to figure out how to live with it and adjust with it. Understand you are perfectly the way that God has made you. So don't ever apologize for what you got going on. And if little kids want to be shitheads, whatever.
Come get me.
I said, you can come get me, but it's actually a blessing in disguise. Yeah. It's a lot like sobriety, right? Like you get these things that you feel like are a curse, right, at first. But then you realize like, hey, man, you know, this is going to help you sort out who your real friends are and who the you know, your fair weather friends are. So it's really a good way to judge someone's character. If they're going to treat you with respect, love, and tolerance, whether you're fucking shaking or twitching or whatever you're doing, that's a fucking friend. Anybody that's going to make fun of you or give you a hard time about it, tell them to kick rocks. Be done with them. Don't waste your time. You know, so it's like shit like that, man. I show up today. I took my kids to a Halloween party that we just had, an arm Halloween party. And they won fucking best costume with kids. You know what I mean? So this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about, man. I get to be a father today.
Yeah. That's real and that's quality. I like that you brought that up because earlier you were talking about selfishness and self-centeredness. And now that I'm sober, you know, there's people in my life that aren't sober. And frankly, there's people in my life that drink in excess at times, you know. Well, how oftentimes do we show up to a party, for instance, like a kid's birthday party, and it's supposed to be for the kid. However, in reality, if you take a step back, it's really about the parents having an excuse to drink together and throw a keg party.
Yep.
You know, and it's so funny how like when we get sober, like I can look at that and be like, oh, I used to throw birthday parties for my kid. I'm like, but if I'm honest with myself, what was that day really about? You know, it was about me smoking weed, drinking, getting high with my adult friends under the guise of a kid's birthday party. 100%. You know, and when we sober up and we have those experiences of like being sober at a kid's birthday party, and you're like, what a difference. And you don't so much of the time we don't even realize how selfish and self-centered we are, because we get that with our clients here all the time. I'm a great parent. I'm like, but if you evaluate those situations like these kids' birthday parties, are you really?
Yeah.
Like, is your heart in it for your kid, or are you just there?
Yeah.
You know, that's the truth we got to swallow and digest.
And that's a hard fucking pill to swallow too.
It is.
So you've been, I want to wrap this up soon. I know, Ben, you got something to do.
I got to do the workout. Yeah.
You've been sober now 5 years?
Yes, sir.
October 8th?
That's it.
Yep. Chances are I won't forget that. I have a weird type memory type thing. I'll forget, you know, well, I won't forget your name and I won't forget your sobriety date, but I'll forget something that you would think is anyways.
He'll forget what he's talking about.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. The jiu-jitsu, the MMA stuff, how's that serve your sobriety?
Okay. So, I for me, what I found is there's a highly spiritual aspect to martial arts.
Yeah.
I need something to challenge me physically and mentally on a consistent basis in order to maintain my peace of mind. Because for me, it's not enough to just go to meetings. It's not enough to just be of service, right? I have that nagging, barking dog in the back of my mind that I think resides in most men. And it's an itch that I can't just go around scratching because society frowns upon punching people in public, right? So I find this thing that, and jiu-jitsu in particular, has changed my recovery in magnitudes. Because what it did was it's a giant slice of humble pie, right? Like I'm a pretty fit dude, pretty athletic, been to war, done all that kind of fun stuff, right? So I consider myself a pretty, capable person.
Right.
Now I walk into this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy and I get my ass handed to me for the first 5 months for a guy who's half my size and just a little tiny ball, but has been doing this thing for a minute. So, outsider looking in, coming in the door, I should be able to fuck that dude up. But he's mopping the floor with me every time without breaking a sweat. How? He's got the jiu-jitsu thing figured out, right? That technique.
Discipline.
And so what happened to me is it takes my ego out of the question, right? And I walk into the Jiu-Jitsu Academy and I immediately know the pecking order. I'm not the top dog. Every guy thinks that wherever they walk into, they're the most dangerous guy in the room. They can handle themselves accordingly, right? It's not the fucking case, right? So you walk into a Jiu-Jitsu Academy and there's these wonderful little belts on everyone's hip, right? And it tells me where I stand in that pecking order, right? So, okay, off rip, I know, okay, we're good, right? So, and as I grow, as I learn, I get comfortable in uncomfortable positions, and this directly applies to life, right? So the humility that I have to deal with, right, especially in jiu-jitsu, is it's like, there's two guys that walk into the Jiu-Jitsu Academy. The guy that walks in there gets his ass beat and goes, that was fucking incredible. I need to learn that so that it doesn't happen to me anymore. And the other guy that walks in there and gets his ass handed to him and walks out the door because his ego can't handle it. So I do all these things, man. And, it's just the undertones of everything. One, it helps me get that dog out, because I like to fight, but I have to do these kind of things in healthy ways.
Yeah.
And so I sharpen my skills, I sharpen my mentality, and I get real humble and I get real right with my higher power, my boss. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's never been, it's like going to a meeting, bro. You don't walk out of a meeting and go, fuck, man, I feel less spiritual. Well, you might, but, I don't walk out of jiu-jitsu feeling angry or Muay Thai feeling angry or doing
Is it a good workout?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Like break a sweat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You come find out, dude.
I need to do it.
Come
I've
on,
been
man.
telling
Come
myself.
find out.
Where do you train at? Right up here, North Lake and Military?
Healy and Gracie, North Lake and Military.
Is that in the Busybody Plaza?
Yes, it is, right next to it. In fact, when I was powerlifting, I was going to Busybody, and then I was like, I'm going to go try jiu-jitsu, and I walked right down the little path there.
Random question. Do you know Alex Uslar?
Maybe.
He's down in Miami. Do you know, just because how old are you?
I'll be 33 on the 15th.
How old's Alex? He's got to
About
be
the same age.
Yeah, he might be. He's been sober now. I got to introduce you guys because you might know a lot of the same people. You grew up Pompano?
Yeah.
So he grew up down in Miami. He owns Ghost Gym.
Okay.
Do you know, do you remember if you were in the powerlifting scene for any period of time, did you ever hear of hybrid performance method?
Yes.
Down in Miami, it was Steffi Cohen and Hayden Bow. They started hybrid performance method. Alex Uslar helped build that brand for them, and then blah, blah, blah. Spare you the details, but he opened up Ghost Gym. And Ghost was they're huge in the powerlifting scene. this guy Tim, they made a lot of equipment, monoliths and stuff like that. Anyways, he opened Ghost Gym Miami. You guys would get along great. Like,
cool.
He was huge in the music scene. He has an interesting story. He was on the podcast years and years and years ago, but he doesn't do 12-step. He's a devout atheist. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. Consider him a friend. And I know he would the same, but, he's got an interesting story. He got sober through lifting and, but he goes to all these concerts and stuff, and he posts on Instagram. He's like, my 33-year-old body can, and they're like, it's those I don't know what you would call it, but they're not really the mosh pits. Like, people were just running around swinging arms and like banging into
my kind of scene, dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You guys would get and probably know a lot of the same people if you grew up in that area. He got into like straight edge,
Yeah.
At least that's what he referred to it as. And he's friends with A Day to Remember, like a lot of those guys and stuff. So
cool.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll make the connection. Ben, any final thoughts?
No, that was a lot of good stuff. Definitely was.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on because there's a lot of stuff that we didn't cover that we could cover. But I think we got the bullet points.
Yeah, man.
Anything else you want to share?
Yes, actually. This is just a great tidbit that I learned, and it's stuck with me for a long time. It's the idea, and for veterans will get this, right? We do not have control over anything that goes on in this world, with the exception of what we have going on, Like, I know Eric refers to that whole hula hoop deal, right? The only thing that I really have control over is my attitude and my effort, right? So what I put into this is what I get out. And how I look at this, my journey of recovery, is what makes a difference, right? Like I talked about when I first got in here, that it felt like something that I had to do. Today, because of the life I choose to live here and the way I choose to look at it, my attitude towards this, is that this is something that I get to do. And I get to give back, and I get to share that with people that are just coming in the door. And hopefully they get it too. But my attitude and my effort is the only thing I have control over. And thus far, this has been the greatest life sentence I've ever gotten. That's all I got.
Nice.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in the end. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Ben, you starting to like that a little bit?
I'm still weirded out.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on the chime of You can reach us at Tom@realrecoverytalk.com.
All right, listen. You can reach us at Tom@realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at Real Recovery.
Info, bro.
No, info. Just go to info. It's seamless. And we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.